G'day Earthlings, Dr. Rank here, and welcome to Gaming Legends, the show that is proudly sponsored by Large. They've just begun production of their new Waste Allocation Load Lifter Earth Class, or WALL-E for short. A robot designed to clean up the mess on our planet while the humans take a much-needed vacation. WALL-E comes with all sorts of amazing features to assist with its trash compaction needs, audio recording and playback, telescopic vision, and a fully functioning laser. Pre-order your WALL-E now and be the first to use it when it launches in 2101. But wait, there's more! Use the promo code Ratzenberger and get the Large Extraterrestrial Vegetation Evaluator absolutely free. Special thanks once again to B&L for sponsoring this video. Seriously though, why does a trash compactor need a laser? In fact, come to think of it,
it's not a laser, it's a little light bulb that blinks.
How many laser shots does it take to beat WALL-E? Important note, this video only applies to the PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, and PC versions of WALL-E developed by Asobo Studio. The PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii versions made by Heavy Iron Studios are an entirely separate game with its own separate mechanics. Since I grew up playing the PS2 version, that's the version we'll be using. The goal of this run is to beat the game while using WALL-E's laser as little as possible. The laser fires constantly while the triangle button is held down, so there will be a little bit of semantics involved. For my run, a shot is one continuous period of laser activation, starting when the triangle button is pressed, and ending either when it's released or when the laser stops firing of its own accord, whichever comes first. Cutscenes are fair game, as we can't skip them on the first playthrough anyway. We'll also be aiming for the maximum possible completion percentage by collecting all the artifacts and breaking all the B&L crates on every level. And finally, all non-cosmetic in-game cheats must be turned off unless absolutely necessary. Lower shot count still has priority, but otherwise we have to beat every level in as legit a manner as possible. Without further ado, let the run begin. B&L checkup plays out normally at first, as we start with an empty laser gauge anyway. But take 3 guesses what happens the exact moment we reach the laser tutorial. The path is blocked by a red B&L crate, which can only be destroyed with the laser specifically. And there aren't likely to be any out-of-bounds shenanigans, since WALL-E's jump height on PS2 is barely 2 inches. So we're forced to make shot number 1 to clear the path. A couple rooms later is another narrow pathway blocked by more crates, 4 red and 2 grey. You might think the grey crate's laser immunity wouldn't be a big deal, but in this case it's directly detrimental. The only ways to break a grey crate are to either throw a junk cube at it, which we can't make in this area, or perform a box charge into it, which automatically turns the laser off. Since the greys are between the 2 sets of reds, we need to fire 2 more shots to get past here, putting our total for the level at 3 shots. After a 7th century time skip, we get to play Sandstorm Sprint, which is much more focused on speed. There are some red crates that we can't break, which means we miss out on the crate destruction bonus, but they're far enough out of the way that they don't pose any real threat. Home Sweet Home acts as the artifacts tutorial, which only requires you to stare at a pile of dirt and then dig it up. The only difficulty artifacts will pose in the entire run is physically reaching them, and even that's not saying much. The presence of red crates here does make their destruction pointless, but we barely have to spend any time here anyway. Workday is our first proper roadblock. The path in the first area is blocked by a vortex which will only dissipate after the blue B&L crate inside it is destroyed. The dev-intended method is to use your laser in first-person mode, which we obviously can't do. But unlike their crimson counterparts, blue crates can be broken with any attack. If we make a junk cube and throw it at just the right angle with just the right timing, we can snipe the crate and clear the vortex laser-free. Unfortunately, that's not the roadblock I was talking about. The pipe immediately after is our only way to the door, and we can only jump in after breaking the red crate propping it up. There's no way past here without at least 1 laser shot. At least not normally. Head to the Cheats menu, select secret code number 4, and type in Explosive World. What does this do? Well, in some areas, you can find explosive cubes, which trigger an explosion when thrown. But with this cheat code activated, regular junk cubes are also given this property. And unlike the other cube types, explosions can destroy any B&L crate, including reds. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Isn't that cheating? I mean, you're literally using the cheats menu for this. Yes. Yes, it is. And that's why I'm adding a secondary counter, keeping track of the number of levels we're forced to use it in. Workday bumps that number up to 1 right now, and this allows us to not only reach the first door, but also to reach the umbrella artifact on this ledge. The second area has a few more vortices to deal with, but explosions can take them out much more easily. The final area actually has a mid-level save point, so if you want to turn Explosive World off again, now's the time to do it. Trust me, it's not going to help you here. The level's exit requires 30 energy charges, which are found inside blue B&L crates. One of the blue crates is hidden in this corner, which is blocked by a red crate. There aren't any junk piles in this area, so we can't make any junk cubes, which means no explosions. And we can't just smuggle one in from the previous area, because you're not allowed to hold cubes during an area transition. With no cube access of any kind, we make our first and only shot in Workday. Thankfully, we can use that same shot to take out the other 3 reds in this area, meaning we can finish the B&L crate destruction bonus for the first time in this run. Hidden Treasure has another vortex at the start, but we can once again snipe the crate with a regular, non-explosive junk cube. There's a native explosive cube generator at the top, which allows you to break every crate in the first area. But only in the first area, as there are too many reds littering the place. There are some crates blocking the path at the end of the level, but they're thankfully just the grey ones. Truck Sweet Truck is literally the same level as Home Sweet Home, with the only difference being that the objective is to shepherd the red dot towards the off-ramp. In fact, if you finish the crate destruction in one level, the game will automatically finish it for the other. It doesn't matter since we can't do that anyway, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Then we get to the shipyard. There's a red crate propping up the ramp leading out of the first area, which we obviously have to break. That means we need to break out Explosive World once again, but it's not quite that simple. There aren't any junk piles near this crate, and the nearest one is on the other side of a large jump. Simply bringing a cube over there is easier said than done. We can only make the jump if Wally is at his maximum speed, which requires us to duck under a barrier with a box charge, which will cause Wally to drop the cube he's currently carrying. Luckily, we don't have to carry the cube all the way to the demolition site. All that matters is that the cube gets there. If we aim above the fence in first-person mode at just the right angle, we can throw the cube over it to land on the other side and break the crate from here. The second area has a few more vortices to blow up, as well as some more cube sniping to get red crates from a distance. Turns out it didn't matter due to the lack of junk piles in the third area, but I'm keeping it in anyway. It's in that third area, though, where we encounter an Eve-shaped keyhole, which we must carve out with the laser using one shot. At this point, we unlock the Tanker Playground, an optional level with only 2 objectives. Go through all the B&L gates in order, and break all the notably laser-proof crates. No problems here. Taking Flight is our first Eve level, and she has her own laser separate from Wally's. She fires exactly 1 laser bullet for each press of the triangle or X buttons, so each bullet will count as a separate shot. Unlike Wally though, Eve can break destructible objects just by touching them, though sometimes at the cost of some HP. This even includes the very much exclusively red B&L crates in these levels, though the very first one seems to be just barely too far out of bounds for us. Just finishing the level isn't much of a problem, letting us find a confirmed specimen of ongoing photosynthesis. Surprise Departure is another time trial that doesn't give us anything to deal with the reds, but it's far from difficult. Immediately after, though, is Stowaway to Space, which is an on-rail shooter without the rails. If even one piece of space junk hits you, you'll have to restart from the last checkpoint. There's also a short cutscene at each checkpoint that interrupts the laser, meaning the bare minimum is 3 shots. You'll also want to hit plenty of crates to replenish your laser gauge lest you run out and have to make extra shots, which, bonus, lets you break all of them. Once aboard the Axiom, we get to Eve Pursuit, which is mostly centered around high-speed platforming. Still plenty of red crates about which we can do nothing, but no major issues. Then there's Clean Getaway, which is another rail shooter. If a single steward bot catches up to you, it's back to the last checkpoint for you. There is technically a cheat code called Bot of War that instantly kills nearby enemies, but it doesn't work for this level. And neither does Stealth Armor, the invisibility cheat. So once again, it's gonna be a one-shot per area situation. The distance between areas is pretty big, and you almost certainly won't have enough laser to get through all of it in one sitting. Once you reach an area transition, intentionally let yourself get captured. Each death causes your laser gauge to refill slightly, and you'll have a greater chance of success with a full tank at the start of each area. My best score? 3 shots and all crates. Life on the Axiom introduces the Magnetic Cube, which is used to attract giant cubes and power machinery. They're the only cube type that isn't affected by explosive worlds, but luckily we don't need that cheat here. Then there's Robot Rescue, which is one of the most insulting levels. In order to obtain the keycard in the repair ward, we need to reach the end of the middle path, which isn't accessible until we finish both the left and right paths. The right path requires 10 energy charges to enter, and the left path requires 30 to finish. The left path has a few blue crates in a stack, with naught but reds at the bottom. Even if we were to throw the nearby magnetic cube at them, the glass prevents them from breaking. There's also a couple blues in the central hub that sit on ledges, making them too high up for a box charge. There is a normal cube generator in this room, but it's near the entrance to the inaccessible middle path. We might be able to skip the need for those blue crates entirely by jumping over to the middle ring, but even speedrunners have yet to figure that one out. The only alternative would be to somehow get to the engine room early, since that's where the level ends, but that's an equally fruitless endeavor. The blue crates here only spawn after entering the repair ward, the door to which locks behind us until we get the keycard. So Robot Rescue has unfortunately succeeded in adding 2 more shots to our total. The Repair Ward Playground and Human Highway don't present any issues since lasers are generally discouraged while playing Frogger. Pod Blaster, meanwhile, is another shooter level. This time you're firing the escape pod's lasers instead of Wally's, and while they do have infinite ammo, you may have noticed that there's 2 of them. Is this 1 shot because you only use a single triangle button press? Or is it 2 shots because you're firing 2 lasers? I'm going to compromise and say it's 1.5 shots. Cosmic Speedway is another Eve level. Instead of just reaching the end of the level in time, we have to keep up with Wally as he flies around with the fire extinguisher. The hardest part of this level is just getting all the crates. While we can destroy them by flying into them, and they're all physically reachable, the impact will cause you to take damage half the time. There's more than enough health in each crate to make up for this, but the real impact comes from being slowed down. If we lag too far behind, we have to start the whole level over again from scratch. But, by some miracle, I managed to get all 30 crates on my 3rd attempt. Rogue Robots is yet another shooter level with exactly the same problems as the others, adding 8 unavoidable shots. Trash Shoot is concerningly misspelt, but thankfully it requires speed only. Then comes my personal favorite level, Fixing Eve. For those who don't know, an earlier version of the film had Auto shocking Eve and Wally repairing her in the garbage airlock. Andrew Stanton later realized the story would be better if they swapped places, but Asobo Studio didn't get the memo. Unfortunately, the start of the level is another Eve-shaped keyhole which we must unlock with 1 shot. After that, we just need to explore the airlock and gather 20 parts. The first path has a giant door that requires 4 separate energy charge deposits. One of the energy slots has a wall of red crates that completely block access to it. Fortunately, there's a junk pile nearby, so we can use Explosive World to deal with it. Unfortunately, this doesn't help us with the crate destruction bonus, as the central hub area has several isolated res and 0 junk piles. We can get a junk pile by box charging a steward, but these ones are single use only. Regardless, finding all the parts is a cakewalk. Don't turn Explosive World off yet though, we still need it for Holo Detector Dash. Just over this wall is a crate stack with reds on the bottom and blues on the top. I tried throwing normal cubes at the blues, but couldn't quite squeeze past the impenetrable glass. So we'll have to blow up the entire stack instead. This switch shortly after was a bit janky to hit with a now explosive cube, but it's not too bad. Once on the other side, we can use another cube to take out the sentry bot, making the stewards a non-issue. Shortly after is another path blocked by red crates, but to get here we need to hit a switch to disable the electric barrier, then dock under the 2 barricades in box form. Getting a cube over here will be much more troublesome, but we do have a method. If you hold down the square button instead of tapping it, Wally will drop the cube behind him without making it explode. If we drop a cube over the first barricade, then use another one to hit the switch, we have just enough time to grab the first one and drop it over the second barricade. We will need to repeat this a few times to get every crate in this room, but nonetheless, it is possible. In the second half of the level, we find out that Explosive World isn't strictly an upgrade. The stewards here are armed with cubes themselves, whose explosions will kill you in one hit. However, Wally is immune to most damage sources while in box form, so if you crouch with perfect timing, you'll escape the blast. You can even use this to engineer friendly fire, letting the stewards blow up each other and even themselves. When you get to the pool, there are 3 more red crates that you can break by recycling steward corpses. That's all the crates in Holo Detector Dash. A Robot's Last Stand is the shortest level in the game, and also the only one where every single crate is grey. Homecoming is the final level of the game, and it's another Eve level. There's quite a few blockades to get through here, but you can just crash through all of them. And unlike the crates, their destruction is retained even if you die or run out of time, making each subsequent attempt easier. Just make sure you go left around this pillar at the end so you don't miss crate number 24. Also, I somehow managed to go backwards at the start of the level. This serves literally no purpose, but it is required. With Wally fully repaired and Eve installing a new sunroof, the Wally PS2 minimum laser run ends with 23.5 shots and 4 levels beaten with Explosive World. But we're not quite done yet. There's 2 more bonus levels to take care of. The epilogue is nothing special, just a few steward fights and gopher chases. But Lido Deck Dash might just be the hardest Eve level in the entire game. No, not to finish, to get all the crates. Right at the start, there's several sets of crates that are horizontally aligned, and Eve can only go diagonally sideways, not perfectly sideways. There is a solution, luckily. If Eve takes damage, she moves slightly backwards toward the center of the path. With proper damage boosts, we can break boxes on the other side of the map from each other. But even with that strategy, there's a lot of stuff working against you. You might not get bonked far enough, or not take damage at all, or overshoot the crate, or take too long between crates and let the timer run out. There is a checkpoint after the ramp, at which respawning always resets the timer to 40 seconds, so I highly recommend taking advantage of it. But the checkpoint means nothing if you let the timer run out completely, so if you miss a crate on the second half, you need to kill yourself very quickly or else restart the entire level. After half an hour of attempts, I finally managed to break all 30 crates and finish the level with 2 seconds to spare. With every single level complete, we can tally my own personal completion goals. 9 B&L crate destruction bonuses, all 21 artifacts, and 93% completion with only 23.5 shots. And may I just say, this was a fun one. WALL-E is one of my favorite Pixar movies, and the PS2 version is one of my favorite Pixar games. If you want to see more Pixar content, you might enjoy my video about beating cars without the gas pedal, or my 100% speedrun of Finding Nemo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next challenge run. And this one promises to be twinsane. That's all for now, and I will see you down under.